Evening, good evening. Come on in, find your places. We're glad to see you tonight. Let's stand and sing. This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Let's sing it out. This is the day that the Lord hath made, that the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord hath made. One more time, sing it. This is the day that the Lord hath made, that the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it, and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day that the Lord hath made. Skip ahead to that next song. We're going to sing the one we did last week. Go church, arise and put your armor on. Hear the call of Christ. We're going to try to sing it again. Sing it. Oh, church, arise and put your armor on. Hear the call of Christ our captain. For now the weak can say that they are strong in the strength that God has given. With shield of faith and belt of truth, we'll stand against the devil's lies. An army bold whose battle cry is love, reaching out to those in darkness. Our call to war, to love the captive soul, but to rage against the captor. And with the sword that makes the wounded whole, we will fight with faith and valor. When faced with trials on every side, we know the outcome is secure, and Christ will have the prize for which he died, an inheritance of nations. Come see the cross where love and mercy meet, as the Son of God is stricken. Then see his foes lie crushed beneath his feet, for the conqueror has risen. And as the stone is rolled away and Christ emerges from the grave, this victory march continues till the day every eye and heart shall see him. So Spirit, come, put strength in every stride, give grace for every hurdle, that we may run with faith to win the prize of a servant good and faithful. As saints of old still line the way, retelling triumphs of his grace. We hear their calls and hunger for the day when with Christ we stand in glory. Well, good. We picked that up. I can hear a lot of us singing it. Let's sing one we know, Sanctuary. Lord, prepare me. Do we have that one? Lord, prepare me. We know it. We switched this one last minute, and so we won't blame them in the back. Sanctuary. Maybe we can search for it real quick. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. Lord, prepare me
to be a sanctuary,
pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. Amen. You may be seated. Welcome tonight. We are glad to see you and looking forward to another lesson of Let's Learn the Bible for Bible study this evening. And we'll continue on. Let me give you a few quick announcements. We'll just jump right in. This Sunday, September 7th is that's not right. I think it's the 8th. I got the wrong notes on here, but it's the 8th. You're right. Somebody told me wrong here. Oh, or I typed this one wrong. Maybe it was me. The previous me told me the wrong date. September 8th, Grandparents' Day. We have a spot on the app where you can add a photo. And we thought it'd be fun to put grandparents and their grandkids on the screen during that service. And so send in a photo of you and your grandparent or you and your grandchild. And even those that have passed away, I know some of us have had those. That'd be great to see. And we'll have a slideshow and a fun time showing videos of all of us and our grandparents. But there's a place on our app. There's a link you can upload a photo to. So jump on there. And we're going to have the Awana Choir sing and have a great day honoring our grandparents. And invite those, especially those who don't have a church home or might just be... They might just like visiting on special services like that. We'd love to see grandparents come. And so that is coming up. And then we have golf tournament as well coming up and men and boys camp out. You can register and take care of the details of those on the church app. Also this Sunday, Joseph Wicks will be in town. He'll be speaking for us in church, so you don't want to miss that. We're indebted to him and his family of what they've done here, serving so many years. And then, of course, we're supporting them with medical missions outreach. And so we're looking forward to that for the service this coming Sunday. All right, we'll have missions moment, and then we'll continue on.
Go ahead and just put up their slide first, not the video. Not the video quite yet. Perfect. Well, good evening, guys. And I am here with the Daniel Wilder family. That's who we're presenting today. And I got a letter from them. I believe one of their daughters was recently here as well. And she's off to college. And we're just blessed with just supporting them in their ministry in Guatemala. And just want to give a little snapshot, a little window of what they're doing out there and of what the Lord is working in and through them. And so he says, thank you for your investment in our ministry. However, your investment does not stop with us. We have had the privilege of starting 8 churches because of your faithful support. And we also are supporting 10 missionaries and are praying, and I ask, us to pray as well for just wisdom and discernment on what their next missionary they want to take on would be and who that would be. And so they give a little story here about Jimmy. He started coming to our church on a bus route when he was 4 years old. I would pick him up and drop him off after church every Sunday morning. After years of coming, he got away from church and practically disappeared. 14 years later, he was found by a faithful Sunday school teacher who attended the church with Jimmy when he was a child. Marcos visited Jimmy and invited him to come back to church. Jimmy finally did come back to church, but finally he got saved and baptized, and now are faithfully attending all the services and really putting his heart in ministry towards what the Lord is doing through him. So after having served the Lord for 8 years in Guatemala, this is Daniel speaking here, I'm still amazed to see how we reap today from planting of so many seeds years ago. Let's keep planting and watering and trusting Lord to give increase. And recently, Brother Marks went down to see what the Lord is doing in and through their ministry down there. And we're going to show that video of just what that entails, and Pastor will come and explain more.
Here's a bedroom here. This door goes out to a little porch outside. Kind of cool. This is the bedroom I'm in right now. And here's a bathroom. There's 2 bathrooms, I believe. So you got a bathroom up here. And then kind of a outdoor space.
Esta luz se prende con las de las escaleras. Porque cuando uno sube ya está claro.
This goes downstairs.
Subíamos en la noche.
All very fresh paint, fairly newly built, all of it. Kitchen. Another bedroom. living space. This could be dining room, living room, another bathroom, and then one last bedroom. Go outside, so this is just one apartment. This is Benjamin. Benjamin, say hi, Benjamin. Okay. And so this is just one apartment out of 4. So pretty neat situation. You got the gate, so you got the privacy and security. And anyway, something to pray about and think about. Pretty neat situation here.
All right, so what this is, the Wilders have actually been down there for 18 years, and many of our people have actually been to this church. It's a wonderful place to go for a missions trip, and so we'll be going again November of 2025, taking a group there to Guatemala. But this is an opportunity that they have, is to buy a 4-unit apartment building that is 4 blocks from their church, and each apartment has 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, has 2 floors on each unit there. And the interesting thing, it's a guy in the church is selling it, and he's willing to really work really well with the Wilders to purchase it. So he's requesting $55,000 down, and then what'll happen is he'll take payments from the church after that. And so Brother Wilder really feels like this could be a great place to house, they're starting a college down there, be a great place for dormitories for, their girls especially. They said that they'd have an opportunity as well for maybe using some of these units, if they don't use them all, for guests that come down like we would go down there. And so I think it's a really good opportunity for them to get this purchased, and he really feels like it could be the Lord's will. The land alone is worth $120,000, so the whole thing would be like $220,000 with all the building. You saw it was a nice building. It's not like some rundown junky thing. I've been to Guatemala. There's some rundown junky things. That's a very nice building. So I'm glad that he has the opportunity to purchase that. We're trying to decide as a church what we should do, and I'd love to have your input. I've had some communication with some of you, and I appreciate now. So what we did is we put on our giving places that you have a spot you could give to Wilder Building. Now, we're going to send some money perhaps tomorrow, as early as tomorrow. We're going to send at least $5,000, all right? So if you want to add to that, I think it's a worthy cause. And the reason we can send $5,000 is, of course, because of the faithful missions giving. This comes out of our missions budget. So for the people that have been faithfully giving, that's why we have funds to do things like this. But this is a really good opportunity. And, the Wilders are just very dear to our church. They're people that we feel very connected to because, again, several missions trips we've been down there. The Wilder people are just sweet, wonderful people. Charity was with us last week. Again, the Wilders have been there 18 years, actually. Think about that. Been 18 years, started 8 churches already down in Guatemala. That's pretty incredible ministry, and we're very thankful as they are reaching that world down there. It's interesting. In Plattsmouth, if you go to, like, for example, La Fiesta or Cancun restaurant, you know what I'm talking about, the Cancun and La Fiesta? Those guys are all from Guatemala. And they come up here, they're business owners, and they they've got businesses in Indiana as well as here. But I'm super glad that we can partner with the Wilders down there. And we're trying to reach these people from Guatemala here. But I don't know why I threw that out there. It's just they have good food. I do enjoy their food. So anyway, that's part of it. But just got food in my mind, I guess. But if you'd like to contribute to this, or if you have just a dollar amount in your mind that you'd say, hey, Pastor, let's do this instead, let's do more, whatever the case is, we're going to try to be a significant help to getting this building bought. And so I just feel like that's something that we could do. When our missionary Barry Hoffman was trying to buy a building there in Korea, in South Korea, we sent $20,000 project. And so, I feel like, just to really be super honest here, we do okay evangelizing our area. We do okay. Maybe we do okay on a scale of 1 to 10. I don't think we do the greatest job, to be honest with you. And I don't know what goes on in the culture in America. It's just hard to get people to witness and go out and soul win and just, bus ministry, all that kind of stuff. But I have determined as a pastor, if I'm going to be effective in having fruit on our account as a church, let's also identify key missionaries that are getting things done in other parts of the world. And so I have no problem sending your money to Guatemala to help a guy that actually is reaching people for Christ there. And so in the long run, we're still seeing people saved. Does that make sense? And so our goal is to see people saved. And I don't want to make it sound like we don't have an evangelistic church. We do. But I'd like to see more effort on that right here in America as well. But this is an opportunity to give, and our money goes a long ways there in Guatemala. And it's pretty amazing. That building, I don't know what that would cost here in America. 4 units with 4 apartments plus 2 bathrooms in each unit. That'd be a pretty expensive property there in America. So it's a good opportunity. So I would like us to join in prayer with me now as we pray for the funds to go through to come to him and be able to get that. I communicated with him this morning, and he said he has, one church that's committed $2,500. He's got a few other churches that are talking about it. Everybody's waiting to see, is it a real thing that's going to happen? It's like, no, it's going to happen. So let's just do it. Let's make it happen. I want to be a doer, not just to talk about things. If there's an opportunity we feel to be part of it, let's do it and make things happen. So we'll just do our part, and hopefully the Lord will work on other hearts and with God's working through us. And so therefore, again, give faithfully to missions. I can't emphasize that enough. To give to our Faith Promise Missions program. You mark it FP on your giving, or Faith Promise Missions, because we make a commitment once a year, and that'll come up in November. We'll be making another commitment for next year, but we'd love to see support come in to help this situation. And we have some funds, so we're going to send what we can. So let's join in prayer as we will pray for this situation. So Father, thank you for the Wilders, and I pray that you bless their family. Wonderful, wonderful family that we just are so appreciative of. And I know they lost a couple of their laborers that went off to college, a couple of their daughters, of course. So I pray you give them extra laborers there to help in the ministry. But Father, they're trying to start churches. We know we want to be a part of that, and help us to have you work through us, help the funds to work through us. As I read this morning in Proverbs 28, how you reward those that take care of the poor and give to the poor. And certainly these people in Guatemala are poor. They may not be able to come up with the funds quite as easy as we might be able to come up with $1,000 or $100 or whatever it may be the case that you lead us to do. So help us to be able to help this ministry. And again, I know we can't solve all the problems of the world, but help us to at least do our part. And so bless and meet the needs, and however to have this come through so that they could buy this building. And Father, again, we thank you for your word. I pray that you bless it tonight. I pray that you just help us again to have our eyes open to what you have for us tonight. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. All righty, so if you do want to give, go to our online giving or give it somehow, somewhere, and we'll get that included, and that'll be great. Let's go to chapter 18. Last thing I did in chapter 17 was kind of funny. I thought it was chapter 17 was kind of interesting because Manasseh came and said, we want to have more land. And they came to Joshua and said, we want more land. And I thought in verse number 15, it was interesting. Joshua said, if thou be a great people, get up to the wood country and cut it down for thyself. And I thought, I like the spirit of Joshua. It's like, all right, do it. Then if you talk, don't just talk about it, let's do it. And I want to be a person of action. We have our core values. Anybody name one of the core values of First Baptist Church? I'm not talking about our mission. Our mission is what we are trying to accomplish. Our core values help us to do that. Anybody know one of the core values of First Baptist Church? Don't make me feel like a complete failure. All right, one of the core values of First Baptist Church. Give me one. Real doing. And that is. People talk about it. A lot of churches talk about things, but I want to accomplish something. I want to see people saved. I want to see lives changed. I want to see people having a church family that they can belong to. I want to see people comforted when they go through difficult times. I want to see people learning the Bible. That's real action. That's real doing. I want that to happen. And so that's one of our core values. Anybody else have one? Strong commitment's one of them, and nothing is accomplished without some commitment. And so it's interesting because tonight, there's I love that Brother Pastor Starr is doing the series over there with the teenagers, and it's interesting. Some of them were supposed to work in the nursery, help in the nursery, and my wife's trying to get nursery workers. They all wanted to be in there. I like that. I appreciate that they wanted to be in the youth department. I also know that somebody has to watch the kids. And strong commitment is also following through and doing your part in ministry. Effective stewardship is one of our core values. We want to be good stewards of our money and our time, and then. The other one is good health. We want to just be healthy in the whole time as we do it. So that's some of our core values. You get those in the starting point class. Or you did. I thought you got those in the starting point class. I'm sorry. So I like what he said. Get it done. Just do it. Let's do it. Chapter 18. Just a little bit of, let's kind of pick it up right here. The whole congregation of the children of Israel assembled together at Shiloh and set up the tabernacle of the congregation there. And the land was subdued before them. And so, as you're thinking about what's going on here, if you're fairly new to this study, children of Israel have come into the promised land. They came from the east side of the Jordan River, came across. They had, dealings with various kings or leaders of cities. They were able to conquer and get victory in most of those areas. They now have kind of gotten somewhat settled. We're going to see that he's going to say, the rest of you, it's going to be on the tribes now. We're going to divvy it up and make sure that we got the right locations, but it's going to be on you a little bit. So when I think about this word Shiloh, go ahead and show the map if you could here on the screen. I want to show you a little bit about Shiloh. Shiloh is, this is really hard to see. Shiloh is in Ephraim. Where is Ephraim? Up here. So Shiloh is right here. If you see that little dot, not that it matters, but I just wanted to show you this. Have you ever heard of Shiloh in the Bible before? Yeah, Shiloh is a place where Abraham, there's been some action in Shiloh before. It actually was quite a spiritual hub of activity, and we see this early on that they actually put the tabernacle in Shiloh. And so let's talk about the tabernacle a little bit. So God told him, let's just back up. We talk about offerings, like we give to our missions program, that's an offering. We built this building mostly with offerings. We bought this 20 acres mostly with offerings, above tithe offerings. In the Bible, the tabernacle was built and made because of offerings of God's people. When they decided to do the temples, you remember the first temple? Who was the one that built the first temple? All right, now this is going to be a long night if you don't talk to me, because I want to have some discussion. Can you turn the lights off? Just not off, but just not on me quite as much. I want to look you in the eyeballs here. Can't see because it's too bright. All right. So Solomon built the first temple. Who was the one that wanted to build the temple but didn't because he was a man of war? David. So David, what did he do? He decided to collect a bunch of money, and he told the whole group, he said, I'm going to give this much gold, I'm going to give this much silver, I'm going to be invested even though I know I'm not going to be the one to build it. And then Solomon comes along and he keeps collecting gold and silver and wood and all this stuff, and they end up building the first temple. They say the first temple was absolutely magnificent. It wasn't a huge facility by any means, but it was made of gold and very beautiful, obviously, Solomon's temple. And then that obviously got destroyed, and that was Nebuchadnezzar and all that. And so then a second temple was built when Ezra and Nehemiah, in their days, Zerubbabel is the guy that went back and actually built that temple. And so they built a second temple. That was in Jesus' day, the second temple. That temple got destroyed by the Romans, Titus in 70 AD. And I know that you love all this history. Let's learn the Bible. Isn't that what this is talking about? Let's learn the Bible. So I'm trying to get a little, I hope it doesn't bore you too much, all right? But so back to the tabernacle, I'll explain what that is in just a moment. The tabernacle and the temples, and I'll say church buildings, I believe should be built with above tithe money. Because what does a tithe go for? Tithe goes for the pastors and the Levites, for example. And so we built this with, again, above tithe money. Exodus chapter 25, verse number 2. God said, Speak unto the children of Israel that they bring me an offering of every man that giveth it willingly with his heart, ye shall take my offering. And so again, I don't ever want to make a big pressure of like twisting arms to give. We don't knock on your door and say, why haven't you given? We don't make phone calls and say, why aren't you giving? It's all has to be willing. Everything here is willing. I just have to motivate, and I have to tell you opportunities like the Guatemala thing. I have to be the one that kind of, suggests this idea, but it has to be willing. Verse number 8, Exodus 25:8 says, and let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. We just sang this song, Lord, prepare me to be a sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true. With thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you. You get the idea. A sanctuary means a holy place. It means a place that's set apart for God. And so God was willing to say, I want to dwell with you. God has always wanted to be a God that dwelt with his people, and they would be his God, and he would be, we'd be his people. The book of Exodus had a clear instruction of how God wanted it built. And this is interesting because this 150 by 75 foot, let's show a picture of it. Let's show a picture. This picture of what the tabernacle was in the Old Testament. We don't talk about the tabernacle much. Have you had a lot of discussion about the tabernacle? Some people get really in the weeds of it and really understand about the tabernacle. I won't get in the weeds so much, but the tabernacle was this, it was made out of these pillars. Some were silver, some were brass. They actually would transport this wherever they went. Wherever they went, they took it down, they took it apart, went to a place, put it back together. Now they're saying we're in Shiloh. We're going to let the tabernacle stay here for a while, and so they set it up there. On the outside, you have badger skins and then goat's hair that go all the way around it, except for on the east side, you see that's a different color there. On the east side, it actually was made of blue and purple and scarlet yarn, mostly, again, of various fabrics woven together. And they were hung on frames then of acacia wood and metal bases, like I said. They had, this whole thing was like 150 by 75. This is feet I'm talking about now. So, okay, let's just perhaps, it's about 75 feet from me to the back of the auditorium. So it's about that narrow. And then it's 150, I said. This is not quite 100. This is about 100 right now. That to that is about 100, just to get to. So it's not much bigger than this, but you get the idea. It was a little bit like another 25 feet that direction on each side of this, and about like the auditorium size. This was something I don't think we talk about it much, and I'm not trying to dwell on it, but I think it's good to understand, if we're learning the Bible, when you hear the word tabernacle, what are they talking about, a tabernacle? Because he said they gathered the people in Shiloh, they set up the tabernacle of the congregation there, and the land was subdued before them. So they needed to bring sacrifices. And what they had to do is you got these gates on the eastern side. They would come in those eastern gates. About 30 feet wide are those gates there. And again, they're made of a different color, blue and scarlet and red curtains. And then they had gold and silver was used for those pillars in these holy places. Then you get in there and you have, go ahead and show the next slide here of what this is. So let's just picture that you come in on the entrance here where it says, the arrow here, you come in and you have, the first thing is a sacrifice. It's a place to sacrifice and wash and so forth. And then you saw on that other picture, there's actually like more of a constructed building. It's not really a building, but it was another, you might say, tent that actually had a roof over it. And so that was made up of a holy place and then the Holy of Holies. All the rest of this was called the outer courtyard. And this is interesting. I don't know how much to get involved in this type of thing, but there's almost like stages of spiritual growth pictured in this, where you come and you get forgiveness, and then you have service, and then you have the true fellowship with God. And the ultimate fellowship with God is at the Holy of Holies. And so, anyway, forgiveness with sacrifice, and then the continuous growth, and then the relationship that we have with God from there. But I'm going to decide how much I want to get into this. So there's these three parts of that, but they had symbolism that goes along with it. But imagine carrying this thing everywhere you went. That's what they had to do. They had to pick it up and move it. Every time they pick it up and move it, it's 7.5 feet tall on the outside walls. So 7.5 foot tall, like tent type of a thing. And they'd roll it up and fold it up, and they'd carry it away everywhere they went. From the book of Exodus until now, they've been toting this tabernacle around. And God said, that's fine. I don't need any special place to dwell. This is a place where I will meet with you in the Holy of Holies here. And that's a place where God said, I will be your people and I will dwell with you in that place. Any comments about that? I just thought I'd throw this out because it's talked about right here. So who has a question or comment? Tim? Yes, yeah, it was just once a year, yeah. Well, and then because, if they didn't come out, they'd actually put a rope on them when they went in there with bells. They stop hearing the bells, and if anybody died in there, they had to pull them out because you had to be, they could be killed in there. The priest could be killed in there, and that is true. There's a lot of stuff doesn't always make sense to us, but again, God set up policies. I'm so glad, number one, that we don't have the tabernacle or the temple. Even the temple, it wasn't like everybody went to church every week. They didn't. Now, they had synagogues, of course, and that's where Paul, he went in the synagogues. And so that happened. But the actual temple was a special place. And when we think about church, and by the way, the building is all this is. The church is the people. We know that. The church is the people. This is just a gathering place. And I will say, I'm so glad that we have this place, this gathering place. I just know what we used to have. And I was very appreciative for the building we had over on North 9th Street, and then the properties we bought across the street and all the other properties that we had. But it's so nice to have this facility where on Sunday mornings we can meet. And now today we've got, Awana going over here. We got the teen thing going over there. We got the nice nurseries and all that stuff. And it's a place that we can meet regularly. And I like the New Testament pattern. We talked about Sunday. This is the church age. And I like it that the church doesn't meet just once a year, right? I like it that the church can gather every week. And in fact, daily. And I love it that you get to see somebody, hopefully, from your church throughout the week, and you have some sort of fellowship time, maybe Bible study together or some time together. And I don't mind Wednesday nights either, another opportunity to get together with God's people. Any other thoughts about this tabernacle? I don't get in the weeds too much about it, but yes.
So the burnt offerings there, that was for like atonement of sin, like you were saying, the forgiveness part, right? So what would you say the major difference would be between the burnt offerings and then obviously live offerings?
Yeah, no, I don't know the answer to that. That's my answer. I don't know the answer of all those things. Dale? It was the only tabernacle. They had one. They had one of these. So, Ron, do you know the answer to his question? I'm not sure I do either. What the difference is, they had all these burnt offerings and then the live sacrificial offerings, and there was a lot of offerings going on in the Old Testament. A lot of offerings. And when you get to Solomon, when he makes the temple, they sacrificed like 1,000 animals at one crack there. There was a bloody place, you might say. It was a very bloody place. And all of this sacrifice, of course, was looking forward to the final sacrifice. Aren't you glad we don't have to sacrifice animals all the time? Imagine the smell. It's like going to South Omaha every day, It'd be smelly, it'd be nasty. It wasn't always as pleasant. But all that was picturing that Jesus was to be, there had to be a blood sacrifice for the payment of our sin. Jerry, do you know the reason, the difference between burnt offerings and other? Anybody know the difference? Anybody in here smarter than all the rest of us? There's got to be somebody in here smarter than the rest of us. Anyway, there were lots of offerings. There were all these other kinds of offerings. There was a lot, and that's a study in itself, honestly, Cody. I don't know, and I didn't get into that tonight for this study, the differences of these things, but absolutely there was a lot of sacrifice going on, a lot of offerings. Now, think about this, Romans chapter 12, verse 1, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, knowing that God has given us such mercy to give us eternal life through Jesus, I beseech you therefore, brethren, by the mercy of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. And so now we don't offer our lambs and our sheep, our goats, or our calves. We offer, of course, ourselves to the Lord. And that's, of course, Jesus was the final sacrifice that way as far as the blood sacrifice, but now we just offer ourselves. Blake? Okay. Did you hear that? Say it again. The burnt offerings were for atonement. Live offering for Thanksgiving and love. So I guess I don't know the answer. If that's, you might be right. I don't know. Atonement always involved blood, though. That's why the only thing that makes me caution on that particular statement that you made. Somewhere there they had to have a blood before they did the burnt offering, probably. Maybe I don't. It's confusing, and I'm not getting in the weeds on that any more than that tonight. Why did I bring this up? Yes, sir. Josh? You see what? You saw that? Oh, you've seen that. Okay. All right. Well, and so, this is an interesting thing. I just go back to putting ourselves in their shoes that in the wilderness, they carried this thing and they'd set it up and they'd set it up for a while and then they'd move and they'd set it up again. When they were in Gilgal, remember they spent quite a bit of time in Gilgal when they first crossed over the river? Well, they toted that thing across and they set it up there, and now they set it up in this place called Shiloh. I just thought it'd be an interesting observation to throw in there that they brought this tabernacle. And the word tabernacle means, again, a sanctuary, a place that's set apart, a place where God would be a holy place that God would meet with these people. So anyway, let's go off that subject. I just decided to talk about it briefly. Back to verse number 1. The whole congregation of the children of Israel assembled together at Shiloh, set up their tabernacle of the congregation there, and the land was subdued before them. And there remained among the children of Israel 7 tribes which had not yet received their inheritance. And Joshua said unto the children of Israel, How long are ye slack to go to possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers hath given you? Give out from among you 3 men from each tribe, and I will send them, and they shall rise and go through the land and describe it according to the inheritance of them. And they shall come again to me, and they shall divide it into 7 parts. Judah shall abide in their coast on the south. The house of Joseph shall abide in their coast in the north. Ye shall therefore describe the land into 7 parts. Bring me the description hither to me, that I may cast lots for you there before the Lord our God. But the Levites have no part among you, for the priesthood of the Lord, for their inheritance is their inheritance. So, and then, of course, the other tribes, Gad and Reuben and the half-tribe of Manasseh, had received their inheritance on the east side of the Jordan River. And so the people go away, verse number 8, I won't read all this, but verse number 8, they go and they kind of sketch it all out, and they say, okay, here's how the dividing might be natural, and I don't know, I've not been there. I'm supposed to go to Israel in January, it looks like, is what I'm supposed to do. My wife still wonders why I want to go over there, because it's kind of a scary place, they say these days, but I think it might be interesting. Less tourists right now. I'm going to go with Kurt Skelly, so he knows the ins and outs of the thing. By the way, if you guys want to go hear Kurt Skelly, he'll be up there in Fremont. We mentioned that. Some guys are going up there. He's a great preacher if you've never heard him, and just a good guy. We love him at our church here as well. But he knows that Israel very, very well. But they're going to cast lots. They're going to map out the areas, and then they're going to roll the dice and say who gets what spot. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but casting lots was one way for them to know the will of God back in those days. The first time it was mentioned in Leviticus chapter 16, Aaron cast lots upon 2 goats to decide which one was to stay, which one was going to be the scapegoat. The last time it's mentioned in the Bible is when they were trying to get a replacement for Judas, and they cast lots to decide on Matthias. Is that how you say it? Is that how you say it? Matthias? Matthias is the guy, I think, that actually the lot was cast to, and he was numbered with the 11 apostles. But of course, now we don't cast lots. We use prayer, the Holy Spirit, to guide us. We have a more sure word. I like what Peter said. We have a more sure word of prophecy that we do well to take heed unto. But they had a combination of course, their work and then God's help to get them to conquer this land. The Levites didn't get the land, as we mentioned there. The tithe was how that was going to be that. I don't know how much of this to read. honestly, in these chapters, it gets a little difficult. And I'm not trying to not teach the Bible. I'm just trying to decide what maybe would be important. Show this next picture. I thought this was interesting. I want to show you. So they end up divvying up the land, and I could read it all. I could read this, but I don't think I'm going to, if that's okay with you. I'm terrible at phonics, and I'll just butcher these names, and so I'm not going to read much more here. But they did divvy up the tribes. What was interesting, that's not the one I was looking for. Go back to that first slide there you go, thank you for that. Notice something here. You have Benjamin and Judah. What are they going to become? What are they going to be known as someday? The southern tribes, all right? What happens later on when they disobey God, the northern tribes are going to be all of these, and they're going to be taken captive by the Assyrian army in 722 BC. It's interesting that Simeon is down here. And it's interesting because, okay, now show the next slide. So you picture Simeon down here. Now, the kingdom of Judah, what happened to Simeon? We don't know. I mean, he's kind of fish out of water, because this is really only Judah and Benjamin that was part of this. It's interesting, Ephraim really kind of, that little border is kind of almost like Ephraim. So when it went northern and southern, later when the kingdom was split, it almost appears like things just changed a little bit. Now it's called Judah down there and Israel up there. I get in the weeds too much, all right? One thing I'll say, because the kids were asking about this in my class today, about the Jews, in the book of Genesis. Where were the Jews in the book of Genesis? Well, they really weren't until Jacob. Jacob is the father of the children of Israel, which had the 12 tribes, and the Jews are actually called Jews from the tribe of Judah. The southern part, Judah, Jews. You've maybe heard the phrase, the lost tribes of Israel. Yeah, because sometimes these northern people, they've been scattered ever since 722 BC. The southern crowd, at least they went back from Iraq, as we talked about with Daniel and that group last couple of weeks on Sunday mornings. They ended up going back to their homeland and rebuilding a temple and all that kind of stuff. What tribe did Jesus come from? Judah, tribe of Judah, all right? And so some famous people out of the tribe of Benjamin, Old Testament Saul, New Testament Saul was from the tribe of Benjamin. He became Paul. And so, all right, let's keep going here. I'm getting bogged down. Let's go to chapter 19. Let's see what we want to see here. Chapter 19, I'm really going to just keep going, because it all is the same stuff about what lot, who got what. I would like you to go to verse number 49. Chapter 19, verse 49. When they had made an end of dividing the land for inheritance by their coast, the children of Israel gave an inheritance to Joshua the son of Nun among them. According to the word of the Lord, they gave him the city which he asked, even Timnath-serah, the Mount Ephraim, and he built the city and dwelt there. Joshua was the leader that got him into the land. I mean, that's true, isn't it? He's the one that actually got him there. So he got a spot in that place called Ephraim. And then in verse 51, they finished dividing the land, and they got it all divided, and that's all good, all right? One thing they didn't do, though, they didn't conquer all of the people of the land, so those enemies came back to sometimes bite them. Colossians chapter 3, verse 5 reminds us as believers, we better get our little sins taken care of, otherwise they may come back to hurt us later too. Mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, the covetousness, which is idolatry, because those things can come and bite you if you don't kill them, you don't get those under control. Let's go to chapter 20. This will be more interesting, all right? I got 15 minutes to have something interesting. Thank you for coming tonight, by the way. Hope you don't just come just for a wanna's sake. I hope that you come because you're wanting to learn some of the Bible. Chapter 20, verse number 1. The Lord also spake unto Joshua, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, saying, Appoint out you for cities of refuge, whereof I spake unto you by the hand of Moses, that the slayer that killeth any person unawares and unwittingly may flee thither, and they shall be your refuge from the avenger of blood. And when he doth flee unto one of those cities, shall stand at the entering of the gate of the city, shall declare his cause in the ears of the elders of that city. They shall take him into the city unto him, and give him a place that he may dwell among them. Now, this is not talking, what's the phrase we have in America today? There's something, sanctuary cities. You've heard that phrase, sanctuary cities? This is not the same. This is cities of refuge is what they're called. And it's if somebody if somebody unintentionally killed somebody, it says unawares, unwittingly, if they actually accidentally killed somebody, they could run to these cities and plead their case, and that city would take them in, and they could be safe there from the family that would want to kill them. Keep in mind, they didn't have the regular police department, they didn't have sheriff's department, they didn't have the same structure that we have, so they had to have some way to help these people. I'm going to turn to Numbers just for a moment here. If you want to look at it, Numbers 35, keep your finger back where we're at there. Numbers chapter 35, this was all explained to Moses before it ever happened. So Numbers 35 is actually God talking to Moses about this. Chapter 35 of Numbers, it says this. It says, verse number 6, and among the cities which ye shall give unto the Levites, there shall be 6 cities for refuge. Ye shall appoint for the manslayer that may flee thither, and to them ye shall add 42 cities. So there's a bunch of cities that we're going to be given. Verse number 11, it says it like this. It says, you shall appoint cities that will be cities of refuge for you, that a slayer may flee thither, which killeth any person unawares. And they shall be unto you cities for refuge from the avenger. The manslayer die not. She'll stand before the congregation in judgment. Of these cities shall you give 6 cities. Shall you have for refuge? You shall give 3 cities on this side of Jordan, 3 cities on that side of the land of Canaan, which shall be cities of refuge. 6 cities shall be refuge both for the children of Israel and for the stranger, for the sojourner among them, that every one that killeth any person unawares may flee thither. If he smite him with an instrument of iron so that he die, he's a murderer. The murderer shall surely be put to death. Capital punishment is in the Bible. And so that's important. Verse 17, if he smite him with throwing a stone, wherewith he die, and he die, he is a murderer. And the murderer shall surely be put to death. And so people don't just die because of guns. Abel was killed by Cain because, of course, probably a rock, So we don't ban rocks either. So verse number 18, or if he smite him with the hand of a weapon of wood, wherewith he die, he's a murderer. It doesn't matter if it's a rock or wood or whatever it is. Verse number 19, the revenger of blood himself shall slay the murderer. So it was up to the person, like the family, to make sure and kill the murderer back in those days. Now we're supposed to have government take care of this, as long as we have decent prosecutors and decent government system. I'm all for capital punishment. I'm absolutely all for it. And I believe executed speedily, get it taken care of. I'm for public hangings. I believe it would limit a lot of our crime problems. I'm for actually giving stripes. I'm for smacking the fire out of somebody and saying, go, don't do that again. Now what we do, we put them in timeout in prison for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and they're in there, maybe getting rehabilitated, mostly not, and then they go out and do it again. Repeat offenders are so common. And I think if you really had a real punishment of that really hurt, I'm not going to do that again. I think that's what has to, and that's the same thing with your kids too, by the way. The reason they don't fear is because you don't have it hurt. It needs to hurt. And so I'm not a kid beater by any means, but I do believe in biblical spanking. Verse number 21, let me just keep reading this a little bit. Or in enmity smite him with his hand that he die, he smote him with surely be put to death. He is a murderer, revenger of blood shall slay the murderer when he meeteth him. Verse 22, but if he thrust him suddenly without enmity, or have cast upon him anything without laying of weight, or any stone wherewith he may die, seeing him not. I mean, if he just chucked a stone across the street, he didn't know there was somebody over there, and the guy dies, he said, no, that guy's got an opportunity to go to the congregation. Verse 24, the congregation shall judge between the slayer and the revenger of blood. Verse 25, the congregation shall deliver the slayer out of the hand of the revenger of blood. The congregation shall restore him into the city of his refuge, and where he fled, he shall abide until the death of the high priest, which is anointed by the holy oil. But if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whether he was fled, the revenger of blood findeth him without the borders of the city, then the revenger of blood kill the slayer. He shall not be guilty of blood, because he should have remained in the city. That's basically what he's saying. Verse 30, whoso killeth any person in the murder shall be put to death by the mouth of witnesses. One witness shall not testify against any person to cause him to die. Moreover, take no satisfaction for the life of the murderer, which is guilty of death, but he shall surely be put to death. Now, God has principles, and so let's talk about this 6 cities on each side of the river, again, for accidental death. They could go there and wait until clearly proven innocent, or the high priest died, or their family died. And I will say this, when we think about, we don't do perfectly right all of our life either. Sometimes all I'm going to just say is Psalm 91 verse 2, I will say of the Lord, this is David talking, He is my refuge, my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust. Now, murder is condemned in the Bible, but killing is not always condemned. I know the 6th commandment says, thou shalt not what? Kill, and it means to murder. So sometimes people are killed and it's not a sin. Should I give you a few of those? Let's do that really fast here. America, by the way, has gotten most of our justice system from the Bible, believe it or not. It clearly has biblical understanding because Judeo-Christian principles, and Exodus, Numbers, all these are part of why we have our Bible has had such an influence on our court system and all that. Now it's changing, of course. People are getting away from God and the Bible. So in chapter 20, verse number 3, back to Joshua, I'm back in Joshua now. It says, the slayer that killeth any person unawares or unwittingly. So there's accidental, unintentional, called manslaughter. And there's mercy that is given to this person. So when is it okay to kill? When is there justifiable homicide? I know some of you want to take notes now so you can kill the person and get by with it. So number 1, self-defense of person or property. That's biblical, and it should be in all of our laws. It starts Exodus 22, verse number 2, says, if a thief be found breaking up, or breaking in, and be smitten that he die, there shall no blood be shed for him. So if somebody tries to break in your house, or to steal your stuff, or to do you or others in your family harm, you have the right to defend yourself. And so that's the way it should be. And most places understand that. So you have self-defense. You can kill somebody for self-defense or self-protection of your property. That should be biblical and should be part of the laws of all of our land. Another time when it's justifiable to kill somebody is in war or military service. We have, of course, a lot of our people are in the military, and sometimes people have a problem with this because, wait a minute, I don't want to kill anybody. Yes, but you're called a minister of God. People that are in the police work and sheriff work and military that have to sometimes kill people, that is actually justified. Romans chapter 13, verse number 4 says, you are a minister of God for good, but if that thou do that which is evil, be afraid, for he beareth not the sword in vain, talking about the authority, talking about the military person or the policeman, for he's a minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. So if you kill somebody as an extension of the government that you are fighting for, or meaning the police or sheriff's department or military, you're not personally liable for their death. That's a biblical principle there. So I know sometimes military people have a hard time, and of course nobody ever wants to kill anybody, but war is ugly. It's terrible, and I hate it. And you see all throughout the Bible war, and sometimes it has to be just to defend, again, property, to defend persons, so forth. The other time it's right to kill somebody is for capital punishment's sake. As we talk about, the person that goes and kills somebody, Genesis chapter 9, verse 5, God set up government back in Genesis, all right? Genesis 9:5. He was setting up government back in that day, and government is a God-ordained thing. We can get all mad about government. We just need to get it right. We need to, of course, we got an opportunity to vote, at least in our nation. We're thankful for that. Hopefully the votes get counted, right? Hopefully. Oh, there's a lot. Dr. Frank is coming to Milano's again September 5th. Is he going to do the same type of thing as he did the other day? So if you've never been to, anybody ever heard of Dr. Frank? Dr. Frank is a scientist, and he actually has really done a lot of work in the study of algorithms and all that goes on with the whole election. And, if you see the statistics that he has, it makes you really worried about your election being fair. In Cass County alone, there were 800 more votes registered at the state than were counted at the county level. Some was screwy with that. 800 more votes that ended up at the state than actually were counted at the county level. How did that happen? In Cass County, Nebraska. That's weird, isn't it? And he's got, these statistics. It'd be interesting. September 5th over at Milano's, just a little plug for that if you want to go hear him. Very unique, interesting guy, of course. And you know what happens? Mike Lindell, the pillow guy, he actually brought this up quite a while back. What happened to Mike Lindell because he brought it up? What happens to you? You get, what's it called? Cancel culture. Cancel culture. Bed Bath & Beyond said, we're not going to sell a pillow from My Pillow because he's an election denier. And thankfully, what happened to Bed Bath & Beyond? They went under. And Lindell still has his company. I think he struggled over the years financially because he gets canceled culture. I personally went and bought 4 more pillows a few months ago from him because I don't mind supporting the guy. I mean, he's a Christian, number one. And it's interesting, who's on the side of all this stuff? There are Christians on the side of this. It's a true story. There are a lot of Christians on the side of this. I'm not saying they're all Christian, but something screwy sometimes going on. And let me just remind us, we're not just fighting against principalities and powers. We're fighting against rulers of darkness. We're not fighting against flesh and blood is what I'm trying to say. What's the Bible say? We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers of darkness and spiritual wickedness in high places. And I think there is spiritual wickedness in high places. And I think America is a target right now. There's a lot of spiritual wickedness going on. And like I said last Sunday, we should fight it. We should withstand. We should have honest elections. We should have all that. And then I will say, I'm going to rest in the Lord from there on. I'm just going to say, God, whatever you want, you can do it all from there. I'll just leave it in your hand. But we ought to do our part. If you think there's shenanigans, we ought to speak up and do something about it. So anyway, other killing that, there's killing that clearly is murder. For example, there's a killing called abortion that's murder. Let's remind you of what that's all about. Exodus 21, verse 22. If men strive and hurt a woman with a child so that her fruit depart from her, and yet no mischief follow, he shall surely be punished according as the woman's husband will lay upon him. He shall pay as the judges determine. If mischief follow, then he shall give life for life. And back to the abortion issue, Proverbs remind us in Proverbs 31:8, open thy mouth for the dumb in the cause of all such that are appointed to destruction. Verse 9 says, open thy mouth, judge righteously, plead the cause of the poor and the needy. And so I do believe Christians ought to be standing up for the rights of the unborn, the rights of those that are vulnerable, and certainly we're all messed up. We're messed up in our world right now. And that's where Isaiah said, you get to the point you call evil good and good evil. It's just messed up. Things are messed up. People want to kill babies, but yet they don't want to prosecute people that destroy property. Something's wrong with that picture. Something's really wrong with that picture. And, it can't go on forever like that. Something's got to come to a head. Something's got to change, and I think it will. And so there's that. All right. Any comments or observations? Yes, sir. Lou?
So, obviously, you definitely recommend reading it for yourself, but the differences between the offerings are all mentioned in the first 7 chapters of Leviticus.
First 7 chapters of Leviticus describe the offerings, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think the distinction that was being made is the peace offerings were offerings made above and beyond sin offerings.
Okay.
That the priests were allowed to eat.
Okay.
While the burnt offerings were entirely consumed on the altar
For God. Okay, the burnt offerings 100% for God. Some of those other offerings where the priests could actually take part. And that's when they were allowed to take a flesh hook and pull out flesh. And instead, Eli's son said, no, we're taking the whole sacrifice. We're going to eat the whole cow here. That was the problem with Eli's sons of Belial. What do we get out of this study tonight? It's been all over the place. Let's realize this. There's a time that murder is murder, and there should be capital punishment that goes along with that. There are other times when it's manslaughter, and that person should have mercy. Let's get that conclusion from the Bible, right? And so we certainly should understand that. The tabernacle was that thing that went with people, that went with the Jews, and they had to set it up, and it had to be, a very special place. And of course, there was a Holy of Holies. And God would meet him there, and there's smoke and stuff would come up and all this other stuff. It's not the Pope's smoke. That's a different story. But I'm glad we don't have all that stuff anymore. I'm glad we just get to simply serve God with our life and gather together with Christians and study His Word and try and live for Him. And He wants to dwell in our hearts, and we are His people, and He is our God, and that's what God's heart's desire has been all along for people. So any other comments about anything that we've talked about or anything else you want to discuss for 1 minute? Yes, sir, Jerry?
There are other things in the Bible, crimes that should have been, what should be today, capital punishment crimes, like men stealing, like rape.
Okay, so stealing and rape are crimes also of capital punishment is what you're saying? Yes, right, okay. That's good to know. Yeah, it's a good reminder there that there are other crimes that deserve capital punishment in the Bible. So that's good. All right. Yes, Mike?
Another thing that's changed over the years is now you're no longer innocent until proven guilty. You're guilty until proven innocent.
Yeah, the American policy is we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, and sometimes that doesn't always come across like that, but that is a biblical principle as well. And the whole idea of mercy, even for these guys that, you accidentally kill somebody, you accidentally hurt somebody, you could run to the city of refuge and at least have a place of mercy, a place that, you could not be taken by the family that died. And that just showed, again, God's mercy in this whole thing. That's what it did. Dale?
I'm amazed that the people that support abortion are the same people that are against capital punishment.
That's what I'm saying. The same people that support abortion are against capital punishment. It's wrong is right and right is wrong. And, we need to be voices for biblical truth and voices for how God set things up, because how God sets things up is always best. What's wrong with sin? Sin is that it just hurts us to do what we're supposed to do, which is to glorify God with our life. And so, we follow the Bible as much as we can. That's the key to that thing. All right, well, I think there's going to be something interesting you're going to enjoy next week. You might like next week better than this week, but I hope you come back. And then Joseph will be speaking Sunday. If you have never heard him, you'll enjoy him as well. So I appreciate your faithfulness. Let's have a word of prayer and we'll be done tonight, all right? Father and God, thank you again for just a reminder that you do have certain things that you make very clear about right and wrong, and even the mercy that goes along with when we do make mistakes or have something happen that's by accident. Thank you that there's a mercy that's given by you, and we're thankful for that principle in the Bible. And Father, again, thank you that we can go right to you. We don't have to go to the special place of Holy of Holies. We don't have to sacrifice animals, that we have direct access to you right now because of what Jesus did on the cross, giving us that absolute access. And help us to come boldly to the throne of grace that we might find mercy in time of need. So bless our people. I pray you watch over those that are sick, those that are going through difficult times, financial difficulties. Again, thank you for our missionaries. I pray that you'd bless all of our missionaries and provide for them, but especially this Guatemala thing as we talk about tonight. Help us to know what we should do individually and as a church. And thank you again for our time together. And I ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. We will see you folks on Sunday or before, whenever. All right. Have a good night.